listening to the Chapter a Day Bible Study. I'm John Stange, and today we're in Leviticus 17, The Life of the Flesh is in the Blood. Leviticus 17 marks a significant shift in the book. God moves from detailed priestly instructions to speaking directly to the entire community of Israel. This chapter isn't mainly about dietary habits or everyday food preparation. It's about worship, allegiance, and the meaning of life itself. At its core, Leviticus 17 confronts Israel with a simple but searching question: who truly owns life, and who alone deserves worship? The chapter opens with a command that may sound puzzling at first. God tells the people that if anyone kills an ox, a lamb, or a goat, whether inside or outside the camp, and doesn't bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting, that person is guilty of bloodshed. We see that in verses 3 and 4. Now, at first glance, it might seem like God is regulating ordinary meals, but a closer look shows that something more specific is taking place. Now, please notice that the animals listed are all animals used for sacrifice. And the language God uses makes this even clearer. So the concern isn't merely killing an animal, it's killing an animal to offer it as a gift to the Lord. So in other words, Leviticus 17 is addressing unauthorized sacrificial acts. Some Israelites were offering sacrifices, we're told, in the open field, in a way that was disconnected from the tabernacle, and God forbids this entirely. And then verse 7 explains why this matters so much and what God was ultimately getting at here. God says these instructions are given so the people will no longer sacrifice to goat demons after whom they had gone astray in the past. This tells us what the real issue was here. Israel was tempted to blend the worship of the Lord with pagan practices. Some of their sacrifices may have been offered with mixed motives and divided loyalties and outright idolatry. So God draws a clear line. Sacrifice must take place where He has chosen, in the way He has commanded. Now, by centralizing sacrifice at the tabernacle, God was protecting Israel's worship and reminding them that access to Him wasn't self-defined. They couldn't approach God on their own terms. Worship required obedience, humility, and trust in God's provision of a mediator. Now, the theological heart of the chapter comes in verses 10 through 12, where God speaks directly about blood. He warns against eating blood, and then He explains why. The passage says, "For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it for you on the altar to make atonement for your souls." We see that in verse 11. And this verse anchors the entire chapter. Blood represents life, and life belongs to God. God had assigned blood a sacred role because it symbolized a life that was given in place of another. Atonement wasn't random or merely symbolic. It was costly. It involved the giving of life. And once again, God emphasizes that this system was His gift. He says, "I have given it for you." So Israel didn't invent atonement. God graciously provided it. Now, later in the chapter, the instructions expand beyond sacrifice to everyday life. When animals are hunted for food, their blood must be poured out and covered with earth. We see that in verse 13. But even here, the lesson remains the same. Life is sacred. Life is God's. Whether in worship or in daily survival, Israel was to live with reverence for the God who gives life. Leviticus 17 points us powerfully toward Jesus in several ways. First, it teaches us that worship must happen through God's appointed means. So just as Israel couldn't offer sacrifices wherever they pleased, we can't approach God on our own terms. God alone determines how sinners may draw near. This prepares us for Jesus, who declares that He Himself is the way to the Father. Now, second, the chapter helps us understand why Jesus' blood is central to the gospel. When Jesus speaks of His blood poured out for many, He's fulfilling the first truth that's articulated here. His life was given as an atoning sacrifice. Unlike the repeated animal offerings of Leviticus, Jesus offered himself once and for all. His blood doesn't symbolize temporary covering, it secures complete forgiveness. Third, Leviticus 17 confronts us with the danger of divided worship. Israel was tempted to mix devotion to the Lord with other spiritual influences, and we face the same temptation today. Jesus doesn't accept partial allegiance. He calls for exclusive trust and wholehearted devotion. Leviticus 17 reminds us that life belongs to God, worship belongs to God, and atonement comes only through God's provision. When we look to Jesus, we see the fulfillment of everything this chapter anticipated. He is the true sacrifice, the true meeting place, and the true source of life. And because of him, we no longer bring offerings to an altar. We come to a Savior who has already given his life so we can live. Thanks again for listening to today's episode of the Chapter a Day Bible Study. For more resources to help you in your walk with Christ and your understanding of the Bible, please visit my website at BibleStudyHeadquarters.com. And if you'd like to partner with me by becoming a supporter of this ministry, you'll see a few options to do so, again, at BibleStudyHeadquarters.com or in the description of this episode. As always, thank you for your prayers, thank you for your support, and thank you for your willingness to share this content with others. Have a great day, and I'll see you again right here tomorrow.